Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and today I want to do another Did You Know style of video for Rainbow Six Siege. Now that the Blood Orchid DLC is just around the corner, I figured this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Kind of go over some of the new operator mechanics that may not be 100% obvious, kind of some small changes that Ubisoft has added in this patch, and maybe a couple Easter eggs along the way. And so to start things off, did you know that you can use Frost and Lesion to create an instant kill trap? Now, this might seem obvious at first glance because you would assume, oh yeah, you place down the frost trap, then put a goo mine directly on top of it, and then you're good to go. You would assume that the frost would then put them in the down but not out stage, and then the goo mine would then be able to finish them off because of its damage over time. That's not exactly the way that it works. For some reason, if both of these traps activate at the same time, the goo mine is nullified. It just doesn't do anything. And while if you are observant, you will notice where your goo mine isn't anymore. And so if your teammate called out, hey, someone's caught in the frost trap, and they don't remember where they placed their frost trap, you can look around the map really quickly and be like, oh yeah, there was my goo mine over in, offices. I know that that's no longer there. I can mosey on over and take them down. So I guess it still sort of gives you a bit of an advantage. It does give you some information, but of course that's not what we're going for. And so if you want to turn this into a super mine, there's a couple ways of going about it. The easiest way is to place the frost mat in the middle of a hallway and then place the goo mine directly behind it. The enemy walks on over, they're placed in the down but not out stage, and then when they flail around while they're down there, it activates the goo mine and it takes them down instantaneously. Now, in a controlled scenario like this, of course, this is the easiest way of going about it, but it's not going to be all that reliable in a real match. There are very few people who are not going to notice or realize that a frost trap is in the middle of a hallway. So if you want to be a bit more stealthy about it and place it behind a window, for example, where a lot of people like to place their frost traps, that becomes a bit more complicated. Because when someone vaults through a window, their animation lunges them forward a bit. If you place the goo mine once again directly behind the frost mat, they both activate. That is the key component here. If both activate at the same time, this little tactic is completely useless. And so one way of working around this is to place the goo mine kind of to the side a bit. Not directly next to it, but a little bit to the side, where that way, when they vault in, once again it activates, and they flail out, and then it will take them down with that goo mine. Admittedly, it might take some trial and error because you don't want it to be too close to the frost trap, but also not too far away. You need it to be like right in that middle sweet section. But if you're able to make this work and actually pull it off in a rank game, it's going to be a very fun and humiliating way at taking down your enemy. The next thing is that did you know that Glaz is going to be getting a couple of small buffs in this upcoming patch, and one of them being that he can now open up hatches with his primary weapon. Make your way on over to a hatch, put 3 rounds into it, and it's gonna open on up like any other barricade that you shoot at, like a window or a door barricade. Now, will this make Glaz a must pick on offense because of this ability? Probably not, but it is a nice quality of life improvements. And so now if you're roaming around the map and you need to flank the enemy, or you just need to get onto the objective really quickly, you don't need to place breaching charges anymore. Place 3 rounds of that and you're good to go. And especially if you're using a suppressor, this could also be a sneaky way at catching the enemy by surprise. The next thing is that Glaz can once again open up holes on the windows when you're playing on plane. Now, if this sounds familiar, it should, because this was something that he was capable of at the start of Rainbow Six Siege, but then Ubisoft for some reason got rid of this mechanic. It is now possible, at least it was when we were playing on the technical test servers. Now, this new mechanic is going to be changing some things for both offense and defense. First of all, if you're on defense, you can now retaliate against an enemy Glaz. If you're in a confrontation with him, he's trying to shoot you through a window. While I don't necessarily recommend it because he still has an amazing advantage against you, you're trying to shoot through a small little hole, he's got an entire window to peer through. It is now possible to shoot him through one of those holes and take him down. Same can be true for the offensive side though. You could tell your Glaz, hey, we're trying to attack the meeting, the front side of the plane, open up a couple holes for me and I can then watch the meeting room for you while everyone pushes on in. So there's gonna be that dynamic as well. All in all though, just keep this in mind when the patch goes live. It's not going to be useful every match. You're not going to be able to take advantage of this mechanic every single game while you're playing on plane, but it is something that you should be aware of. The next thing I wanted to take a look at is Ying's gadgets. If you're not aware, Ying has an ability where she can throw out a cluster flashbang charge, where when it goes off, a bunch of flashbangs fly all over the place and then hopefully will disorient the enemy. Now, what I did not realize is that this thing has a pretty crazy range to it. If you're 15 meters away and you're staring at the effect itself, you'll actually be flashed by it. Now, it doesn't really last very long, it's only a split second, but if the enemy Ying is quick on their feet, they round the corner at that very moment you are flashed, they could have the advantage against you and take you down. The closer and closer you get to it, of course, the more effective that it is. 10 meters, it lasts a little bit longer, but if you want to get the true effect, you want to have this cluster charge going off directly next to the enemy, just like a flashbang. If they're right in the thick of things, that's where you're going to get that full flash effect. Another thing related to Ying's gadget is that it is affected by Jaeger's device in a lot of different ways. If you try to throw this next to a Jaeger's ADS or roll it on in, it's going to nullify it. It's just going to be completely useless and no cluster charges are going to happen whatsoever. The thing is, though, is that if you place this next to a wall and you cluster charge it, kind of like Fuse, it acts just like Fuse, where each and every single individual one of those flashbangs is going to be zapped by an ADS. The thing is, though, is that there is a lot of flashbangs in that Candela charge. And so if you want to get rid of all of Jaeger's trophy system in a room and then allow your teammates to not have to deal with that gadget anymore, this could be a good way of going about it. You flash the room really quickly. Sure, most of them don't really activate. It doesn't blind anyone, but then you can start to throw nades in there to take care of the barbed wire. You could then have Fuse kind of follow it up really quickly with a cluster charge. And especially, this could be a really cool combo. If they don't have a Jaeger, you flashbang the objective, then you have a Fuse followed up directly after that. So everyone's flashed, they don't see or can't figure out what's going on around them, and then cluster charges fly on in and mop them up. They can't run away because they can't see the door anymore, and you could get a lot of kills that way. That could be a really fun tactic. The next thing is that did you know that you can stack Legion's goo mines on top of each other to create a much more powerful mine? Now, I don't know if I would recommend this because it's probably not all that useful, but it could actually take someone down that isn't expecting it. So if you just throw all 70 of your mines, which admittedly takes the entire round to actually do this because it slowly recharges, you don't have 7 mines to begin with, but if you're able to put all 7 of your mines in one area, it's going to do 70 damage as soon as they walk on over. Now, the thing to note about this, though, is that the damage over time does not stack. If you're not aware, Legion, when you walk over his mine, it does initial 10 damage. That's why I said earlier, if you walk over 7, it's going to do 70 damage, but then it has a damage over time effect. If you walk over multiple goo mines, of course, it will do that initial burst of damage, but the damage over time doesn't stack. And so if you walk over 7 of them, it's not going to, all of a sudden do 7 times the damage every couple of seconds. That's just not the way that it works. And so while I don't necessarily know if I would recommend doing this, but if you are playing casual, you're just kind of messing around with some friends and you want to leave them a little bit of a surprise, this could be a very funny way at placing them in the down but not out stage if they've taken some damage before they walked on over. Another thing that's worth noting is that if you activate this trap, it will never stop doing damage until you go through the animation to take out the barbs from your operator. And so if you're in a sticky situation, let's say you're playing as Montaigne, for example, these things are really annoying as Monty because you have to take them out, you have to leave yourself vulnerable because it will eventually kill you. It'll eventually put you in the down but not out stage. And so if you know that the enemy is playing Monty all the time, this might be a really good way of countering him. It may not outright take him down initially, like a Frost Trap or a Capcan Trap, for example, but if you want to put him in a precarious situation where you're surrounding him, he's affected by the goo mine, he doesn't have a lot of options there, and that might allow you to get the edge against him and win the round for your team. The final thing I wanted to mention in today's video is that there are a few Easter eggs on the new theme park map. The first one is really obvious. If you make your way into the front entrance, you'll probably see it right away, and that is that there is a Far Cry Blood Dragon arcade machine. You can't play it, doesn't really show anything other than the logo, but of course it is a direct nod to their franchise Far Cry and that specific DLC. Another thing I thought was pretty cool is that if you make your way onto the outside of the building, you'll notice that there is a cutout photo stand of Ash and Sledge. Now, I don't know if this is Ubisoft's way of nodding to the community and being in on the joke that Ash doesn't have a headshot hitbox, because clearly there's a giant hole there, but it is pretty funny and kind of ironic that they would choose Ash of all of the operators to be one of the people in this stands. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Did You Know? I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have discovered any cool or new interesting things with this upcoming patch. Ubisoft has changed a lot with this upcoming DLC, and while I know, of course, console players haven't really had a chance to play on it yet, if you played on PC and you discovered anything really cool and interesting, let everyone know down below in the comments. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one, and take it easy.